What's good, horror horde? This is your boy Horror Gamer, and we are back with another video for you. And we are diving right back in to Resident Evil Volume 2, Caliban Cove. So sit back, relax, get yourself a cool beverage, a bucket of popcorn, or whatever you like to snack on, and ease yourself into the world of Resident Evil Volume 2, Caliban Cove. Let's get it. So the last time we were in this book, Horror Horde, Karen finally realized that she was possibly infected, and now they're on a mad hunt to find a cure for Karen's ailment. But before I get into reading and diving right back into the fuckery that's been happening, I want to take a moment to thank Dustin and Aaron from the TheBarrensHideout podcast that I was on last night. I made a video earlier thanking you guys, but I just want to give you guys another shout out. It was a blast, guys. I had such a great time. It was so much fun. The movie we talked about was fun. Hanging out with you guys was fun. I appreciate the opportunity. And for my horror horde, conveniently enough, the link to their YouTube page is going to be where? In the description box below. So definitely go give them guys a sub. Check them out. They make great stuff. The content's great. The podcast is great. Just everything about those two guys were just awesome. They really helped your boy Horror Gamer, and the fact that they made it so easy just to be on the show, and I didn't feel unwelcomed or unwanted at any point in time. I felt like I knew those guys for years. That's how they made me feel. So thank you guys again. Like I said, Horror Horde, go check them out. The actual podcast is on their channel as we speak. So if you guys want to sit back and have a good time and just listen to, three horror fanatics talk about horror, definitely go check that shit out. So, but again, guys, thank you. You guys are the best. So, all right, Horror Horde. Now, as we dive back into Caliban Cove, let's just get right into it, and let's just see what happens with Karen, because I have a feeling they're going to do a typical like Resident Evil-esque type of deal with her, and it could be just a sad ending, but I'm hoping for the best. So let's just dive right into it. Chapter 13, and guys, we're almost done. I mean, we only got like that much of the book left, so let's just get right into it. The E-block was no different than the first four they'd encountered, as bland and industrial and stale as the rest of them. A study in concrete efficiency. They moved quickly through the stuffy halls, turning on lights as they went, searching for the room that held the final clue to Dr. Amon's secret. It didn't take long. Almost half of the structure was taken up by an indoor shooting range, where David had found boxes of loaded M16 mags, but no rifles to go with them. John had asked if he should receive the Tri-Squad weapons, which Rebecca promptly voted. The rifles were hot, probably crawling with virus. Like Karen's blood by now, streams of replicating virions bursting from cells, searching for new cells to attach to and use and destroy. "Here," Steve called out from farther down the winding corridor, and Rebecca hurried toward him. Karen and John not far behind. David was already standing with Steve by the closed door. The red, green, and blue triangles, a sign that they'd hit on the right room. Steve's gaze seemed to seek her out, but was blank of all emotion except worry. She didn't mind. noted it only absently. Karen's infection, John's insane run at the tri-quads. There wasn't room in her for anything but the need to find the lab, to find help for Karen. Steve opened the door and they filed inside, Rebecca continuing to watch Karen closely for signs that the virus had progressed and wondering what she would do with the information she'd picked up so far about the amplification time. She didn't really have any doubts that Karen had been exposed and knew that no one else did either. But what should she say? Do I tell her that it might only take hours? Do I pull David aside? If there's a cure, she has to get it before the damage is too great, before it starts to fry her brain, before it dumps so much dopamine into her that she stops being Karen Driver and becomes something else. That shit is just crazy. That lucky grenade didn't help. Rebecca didn't know how to handle it. They were already doing all they could, as fast as they could, and she didn't know enough about the T virus to assume anything. She also didn't want to see Karen any more terrified than she already was. The woman was doing her best to control it, but it was obvious that she was on the edge of a breakdown, from the desperation in her blood-red eyes to the growing tumor on her hands, or the growing tremor on her hands. And for the tri-squads, and the tri-squads had almost certainly been injected with much larger amounts than Karen had been exposed to. Maybe she had days. First symptoms in less than an hour? Don't kid yourself. You have to tell her, to warn her and everyone else of what could happen soon. She pushed the thought aside almost frantically, looking around at the room they'd entered. It was smaller than the test chambers they'd come across and emptier. There was a long meeting table pushed to the back, a half-dozen chairs behind it. In the front of the room was a small shelf coming off the wall, only a few feet long and a foot deep. There were 3 large buttons on the flat surface, red, green, and blue. The wall behind the shelf was tiled in large, smooth gray tiles made from some kind of industrial plastic. That's it, Steve said. Blue to access. With barely a second's hesitation, David walked to the corner and pushed the blue button, and a woman's voice spoke coolly from a hidden speaker above, startling them. It was a recording. The bland tone eerily reminding Rebecca of the final moments of the Spencer estate. The triggering system tape. Blue series complete. Access reward. One of the tiles behind the shelf slid away, revealing a dark recess set into the concrete. As David reached into the hidden square, Rebecca felt a surge of frustrated anger and disgust for Umbrella, for what she realized they had done. It was despicable. All those tests, all that work, set up to dole out treats to T-virus victims. Get through the red series, good dog. Here's your bone. And what was their reward for making it through the tests? A piece of meat? Drugs to ease their hunger? Maybe a brand new weapon for them to train with? Jesus, did they even understand what they'd been doing? She saw the same curled sneers of horror and disgust on the faces of the others, and saw the same growing dismay as they watched David pull a single tiny item from the recess, what looked like a credit card with a slip of paper stuck to one side. They gathered around him as he held the item, up, his dark gaze heavy with an almost manic disappointment. It was a light green keycard, the kind used to open electronic doors, blank except for a magnetic strip and the scrawled words on the small square of paper said only Lighthouse Access 135 Southwest/East. Handwriting's the same as on Eamon's note, Steve said hopefully. Maybe the lab is in the lighthouse. One way to find out, John said. Let's go. He seemed angry, the same look he'd worn since their discovery of Karen's exposure to the virus. After watching him charge the tri-squads outside, Rebecca almost hoped that they'd come across Dr. Griffith. John would tear him apart. David nodded, slipping the card into his vest. The fear and guilt that he felt were obvious, playing across his features in constant twitching mask. Right, Karen? She nodded, and Rebecca saw that her already pale skin had taken a waxy tone, as if the top layers were becoming translucent. Even as she watched, Karen started to scratch absently at her arms. Yeah, I'm good, she said quickly. She has to know. She deserves to know. Rebecca knew it couldn't wait any longer. Choosing her words carefully, aware of their limited time, she turned to Karen and spoke as calmly as she could. Look, I don't know what they've done with the T virus here, but there's a chance that you could start to experience more advanced symptoms in a relatively short amount of time. It's important that you tell all of us how you're doing, physically and psychologically. Any changes at all, we need to know, okay? Karen smiled weakly, still scratching at her arms. I'm scared shitless, how's that? And I'm starting to itch all over. Ooh, itchy tasty, yo, what's up? Just saying. She turned her red eyes to David, then to Steve and John before looking back at Rebecca. If I start to act irrationally, you'll do something, won't you? You won't let me hurt anyone? A single tear slid down one pale cheek, but she didn't look away. Her wet, crimson gaze, as firm and strong as it had ever been. Rebecca swallowed, struggling to sound confident and reassuring, awed by the bravery she saw in Karen's eyes, and wondering how much longer that bravery would hold up beneath the roar of the T-virus running through her veins. We're going to find a cure before it comes to that, she said, and hoped that she wasn't telling Karen a lie. Move out, David said tightly. They moved out. The grounds of the facility were on a definite gentle slant, rising to the north, but as they left the E block and started for the towering black structure that perched over the cove, the curving slope became much steeper. The rocky soil angled up sharply, maybe as much as the 30-degree incline, making the half-click walk into a hike. David ignored the strain in his back and legs. He was too worried about Karen and too busy tearing away at his own incompetence to bother with physical discomfort. They were closer to the shimmering waters of the cove than they had been since climbing out of them, and the cool whispering breeze of the moonlit surface would have been pleasant on some other night in some other place. The swaying ripples of the soft light and the soothing murmur of waves were almost a mockery of their desperate situation, such a sharp contrast to the chaos inside of him that he found himself almost wishing that they were still tri-squads roaming around. At least then this would feel like a nightmare, like the nightmare it is, and I could do something. I could fight back, defend them against something tangible. Ahead of them, the rising land curled around the east, dropping away to a foaming sea far below. The cove itself was fairly calm, but the sound of waves smashing against the cliffs grew louder as they hurried on, approaching where the oceans met, towering cave-riddled rock walls. John had taken the lead, Karen next, and then the two younger team members. David brought up the rear, dividing his attention between the compound to their left and behind and the dark structures ahead. Directly in back of the lighthouse was what had to be the dormitory, a long flat building almost twice the size of the concrete blocks they'd left behind. They hadn't come across quarters for the umbrella workers anywhere else, and it had the look of a bunkhouse, designed for sleeping and eating, no thought given to aesthetic appeal. They probably should check it out, but David didn't want to waste a moment in their search for the lab. The thought brought on another wave of guilt and angst that he tried unsuccessfully to block out. He needed to be effective, to get them to the laboratory as quickly as possible without floundering in his doubts and emotions. But all he kept thinking, kept wishing, was that he'd been infected instead. But you're not. Some tiny part of him whispered. Karen's got it and wishing it's pointless. Yeah, Karen's got it and wishing is pointless. It won't cure her, and it will cloud your ability to lead. David ignored the small voice, thinking instead of how badly he screwed them all. Who was he? To lead a fight against Umbrella, to clean up the stars, and bring honor back to the job. He couldn't even keep his people safe. Couldn't plan a simple covert op. Couldn't even battle the demons of self-doubt and horrified guilt that raged inside of him. They neared the lifeless dorm building, John slowing to let the rest of the team catch up. David saw that his team was tired, but at least Karen didn't look any worse. In the gentle light of the swollen moon, she seemed pale and somehow fragile. The deathly pallor she'd worn beneath the fluorescence had translated into a soft, Proclean cast, the redness of her gaze turning to shadow. If he hadn't known better. But you do. How long now? Before that milky skin starts to peel, to flake away. How long before she can't be trusted with a weapon? Before you have to restrain her from... Stop it. He let them catch their breath, turning to get a better look at the lighthouse less than 20 meters away, and felt his stomach clench. His heart shudders suddenly, for no reason that he could have explained. It was an old lighthouse, a tall, cylindrical, outdated building, weathered and dark, and as seemingly deserted as the rest of the compound. Looking at it, he experienced the feeling he'd had earlier of impending doom, of options closing down behind them, and the spinning wheel of darkness ahead. Come on, John said briskly, but David stopped him with a hand on his arm, shaking his head slowly. Not safe. That tiny voice again, familiar yet strange. He stared at the looming tower, feeling lost, feeling uncertain and out of control as the wind swept over them, the waves pounding the cliff. They were waiting. They were waiting. It wasn't safe, but they had to go in. They couldn't just stand there. And it hit him suddenly, a clear realization of what what it was that had gone wrong in his mind, what was really wrong. It wasn't his competence. It wasn't his ability to think or plan on or fight. It was something far worse. Something he might have noticed much earlier if he hadn't let himself get so wrapped up with guilt. I stopped trusting my instincts. Without the security of the stars behind me, I forgot to listen to that voice. So terrified of making a mistake that I lost my ability to hear, to know what to do. Every time the fear hit me, I pushed through it, I ignored it, and I made it that much stronger. Even as he thought it, as he believed it, he felt the blackness of doubt lift from his exhausted thoughts. The guilt eased back, allowing a kind of clarity to filter through, and with it, the tiny voice inside took a power that he'd almost forgotten it could have. It's not safe, so hit the door fast. 2 in low, the rest high, and covered outside. All of this flashed through his mind in seconds. He turned to look at his team, watching him, waiting for him to lead. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, he knew that he could. I think it's a trap, he said. John, you and I go in low. I'll take the west. Rebecca, I want you and Steve to stand on either side of the door and fire at anything standing. Keep firing until we call clear. Sorry, Karen. You'll sit this one out. They nodded all around and started for the deep shadows that surrounded the ominous tower. David in front, finally feeling as though he was doing something useful. Maybe that spinning destiny was too vast, moving too quickly for them to deny. But he wasn't going to let it run them over without at least putting up a fight. Karen deserved that much. They all did. This is getting fucking good, boy. I'm at the edge of my seat. I don't know about y'all, but I'm definitely at the edge of my seat with this one. Karen hung back as they moved into position, leaning against the back wall of the large building behind the lighthouse to watch. She felt winded by the climb up the hill, winded and strange, and there was a buzzing in her brain that wouldn't go away, wouldn't let her fully concentrate. Getting sick, getting sicker, fast. It scared her, but somehow it wasn't as bad as it had been. In fact, it wasn't really that scary at all. The initial terror had gone, leaving her with only a memory of the adrenaline rush, like a whiff of a bad dream. The itch was distracting, but not exactly an itch anymore. What had felt like a million bug bites on her skin, each separate and distinct and screaming for relief, had connected. It was the only way she could think to describe the sensation. They had connected, had become a thick blanket over her body that crawled and squirmed as if her skin had come to life and was scratching itself. It was weird, but not exactly unpleasant. Now, at the sound of David's voice, Karen focused on the sudden action in front of her, the buzzing hum of her head making it all seem strange. Speeded up somehow. The door to the lighthouse crashing open, David and John leaping into the blackness, bullets flashing and booming, the high, whining rattle of an M16 inside, Steve and Rebecca ducking and firing out and in and out again, their bodies blurred by speed, their Berettas dancing like black metal birds. It was happening so fast that it seemed to take a long, long time for it to stop. Karen frowned, wondering how that could be, and then saw David and John step back, out into the blue light of the moon and realized that she was happy to see them, even with their strange and distorted faces, their long bodies that moved too quickly. What's happening to me? Karen shook her head, but the buzzing only seemed to get louder, and she was afraid again, afraid that David and John and Steve and Rebecca would leave her behind. They'd leave her behind, and she wouldn't have anyone to ease her mind. That was bad. David was in front of her, staring at her with eyes like wet, dark cherries. Karen, are you okay? At the look on his round and pointed face and the sound of softness in his voice, Karen felt happy again and knew that she had to tell him the truth. With tremendous effort, she found the strength to say what had to be said, her voice coming out of the crawling body and the buzzing, sounding as strange to her as the wind. It's getting worse now, she said. I don't think right. David, don't leave me. John and Rebecca, their hot hands touching her, leading her away and into the darkness of the open door. Her body worked, but her mind was clouded by the trembling, buzzing hum. There were things she wanted to tell them, things that drifted through the cloud like flashes of pretty pictures. But the building they moved her to was dark and hot, and there was a body on the floor holding a rifle. His face, she could see, his face wasn't strange. It was white and curling, textured like the buzzing and the crawling. It was a face that made sense. I got the door, Steve said, looking up and grinning, white teeth. 135. There was a keypad next to an open hole, stairs leading down, and Steve's teeth appeared, his flat face wrinkling. Karen, we have to hurry. Hang on, baby, hang on. We'll be there soon. Karen let them help, wondering why their faces looked so strange, wondering why they smiled so hot and good. What? That is fucked up. So, well, horror, we have a little bit to discuss here. So apparently, I don't think Karen's gonna make it. I honestly think that, unfortunately, in good stories, in good narratives, not every hero can make it. Not everybody can make it. Some have to be sacrificed for the good of the story, and unfortunately, I believe that sacrifice is coming from Miss Karen. Now, I'm just jumping to conclusions, but I do believe that it's not looking good for our old pal Karen. She may turn, she may not, but I love how they left the chapter almost in like a dire distress, and now we have to wait. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this chapter as much as I enjoyed reading it. It was fun. I'm enthralled in this. I wonder what's going to happen next. I can't wait. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty, guys. We're coming close to the end of the story. That's how much we have left. Right there. That little bit. So I think it's another week or so, maybe 2, and then we'll come to the white knuckling conclusion of Resident Evil Volume 2 Caliban Cove. But now, like I said, H0rr0rr, I really hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. I do apologize, like I say all the time, your boy H0rr0rgamer isn't the strongest reader, but it's something I really enjoy. I really enjoy reading. I really enjoy getting lost in a good book. And I'm happy that I'm able to bring you guys with me on that journey. I hope, the ominous Resident Evil save music that you hear in the background and stuff really helps set the mood for the story. So, so with all that horror, if you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button along with that dingly ding ding button. That way every time your boy Horror Gamer throws up one of these, Horror Gamer reads you're in the know. Also, when you're done doing that, don't forget to run on over to the official Horror Gamer Patreon and see what kind of cool stuff we got going on out there. We have the Saturday night movie nights, the hangouts, exclusive content where, you guys can pick what your boy Horror Gamer throws up, or, he throws up on the channel, or like when I'm going to start my Twitch, you guys get to choose the game. If you're a patron that you want to see me play on Saturdays and stuff like that. So definitely get in on that. And then when you're done doing all that, head on over to the Z Network and see what kind of cool stuff we got going on out there. A bunch of us creators got together to create something fun and special for you guys. So definitely take advantage of that. We have podcasts out there. We have, comedy stuff. We have it's just like a whole bunch of ingredients that we threw into a pot and made something as awesome as the Z Network. And again, conveniently enough, the link for that's also going to be in the description box below. So definitely go check those out. And once again, I did say it at the beginning of the video today, I wanted to give a huge, special, awesome shout out to the horror, I'm drawing a blank on the name, the Barrens Hideout podcast. Those two guys out there, they were amazing. You guys made me feel welcome, and it was just a fun time, and I definitely want to get in on it again. So we'll definitely be doing that. But as I said at the beginning of this video, the link for their YouTube page is also going to be, conveniently enough, in the description box below. So go give them a subscribe and a like and see what kind of cool stuff they got coming out too. So, but all right, Horror Horde, with all that being said, I love you guys. Thank you guys. And until next time, this is your boy Horror Gamer saying, as always, don't fear the darkness. Embrace it.